Yes, yes. That is David you're looking at. Live on A.LawfulTruth. Wonderful. Oh my goodness. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Oh, what a show we have for you today. Ooh, child. Well, listen. Welcome to Mornings with Marvel, where authenticity lives and thrives to create a space of growth, healing, and joy. I am your host, Andrea Lawful Sanders, and each day we will cover the topics that are informative and engaging while learning from each other. In lieu of our morning motivation, we will have David Alexander on. As you can see,
All
he's
the
already here.
motivation you need.
David, oh my goodness, there's so much to talk about. We were really going to delve into. Did you do your research on Mandami?
Yes, and here's the thing. We'll get there, but I want us to clear our minds of the noise and focus on the product. That's what I will say
Okay,
now. Okay,
okay. So late yesterday evening, there was a breaking news that
breaking
they have
news.
found a way to stop the stalemate and that the government will reopen.
60
And
40.
when 60, right? And so when we read the news, what people learned was that they'll continue to get their SNAP benefits, that the monies will flow for SNAP and a few other government agencies right through to the end of the fiscal year, which is September 30th, but the budget part of it is only until January 31st.
And
And
that
that
just will not affect Obamacare.
that's not what they said. What they said was they promised to have a vote in December about Obamacare. And so people are looking. I woke up this morning, people's heads were tilted to the side like this, and folks were fussing and complaining. And those who have been following the government have just been incensed. There's talk of Schumer being put out of office because he couldn't lead his own people out of a paper bag. It's not me saying it. This is the folks reporting. And so where do we go from here? Let's clear the deck from the elections and really focus on what is happening. There is talk, even the pundits are saying on national television, that this is really about reopening the government so people can spend their money before they shut it down again on January 31st, right? There is talk of Besant, who is head of Treasury, saying that the president is talking about, instead of keeping Obamacare going, that they would just give people the money, and that Obamacare is unaffordable. And so, shifting through all the noise, what are your thoughts around this? And good morning to all of you.
So first we have to. Good morning, everybody. And I am. Um, the first thing we have to do, as I said, is unhear the noise. We have to go back to the paper trail, right? When Hillary Clinton's husband, let's go back that far ago, Bill Clinton, set upon the nation the idea of universal health care. What he went back to was a time in America, post slavery, when the first conversation about universal care of people as it pertains to health was had. And then he drew upon the years of struggle that led to Jim Crow law and this and the other, and the reasons why the government at that time voted not to have universal health care laws in America was because it might be accessible by people who were brown. Okay, so that's the first thing we have to remember when we go back and look at that paperwork. When we fast forward to what was then represented by Bill Clinton as health care for universal health care, that was defeated in the government for really reasons which to me felt very similar. Who actually would be able to obtain this care? That care then was reintroduced to the government when Mrs. Clinton was Secretary of the State as a push that she had that said maybe we should look back at taking care of people fundamentally. That's why I say her husband, okay? And then we see Barack Obama, when he comes to office, really champion both Mrs. Clinton's ideology, Mr. Clinton's ideology, the previous ideology that there should be free health care in any country which is not of the third world. The debate that is had on the floor, and by the time this debate is being happened, I want us to remember that the people who were debating against universal health care were the Republican Party, right? Who stopped it at every single access point, stripping away all of the things which would have made it entirely free, because the presentation of universal health care was first a government funded project where nobody, no taxpayer, no company, no this and that, would be paying anything for the citizens. It was completely a government supported care, and that was taken away. And then this idea, remember the debate about what about my private insurance, and what will happen with that, and what do we do with all the lobbyists in the pharmaceutical world, and what do we do with this and the other. And we got down to this really shitty universal health care plan, which was to say that basically if you had any employees, you were going to have to pay for part of them, no matter how big or small your company was, which was that you'd have to access this sort of a giant national system. But what we came down to at the end, which by the way did save millions of lives in America, millions of people became insured suddenly and began to go see a doctor for things like heart disease and cancer and all other sorts of things, which are chronic illnesses that could have been deathly had they waited for the emergency room. Millions of Americans did benefit. But what is true is that we passed a broken system because it's the only thing the Republican Party would allow the nation to pass, as it stripped every magnificent clause out of that bill in hopes that it would be a disaster. It worked, oddly, but it has been painful for people somewhat who own businesses in that way. And so now the Republican Party says this is a disaster, it's terrible, it's awful, and we need to get rid of it. But what do you do with all the millions of Americans who are in need of such a system, who exist and are alive because these subsidies, these healthcare systems exist today in America? So I want us to take that context and I want us to set that to the side. Remember that, everyone.
Mhm.
Now I want us to go to another bit of propaganda. This anti-Muslim hatred that we have in America, which is really, I'm going to broaden it, anti-Christian hatred that we have in America. We have an alt-right nationalist Christian foundation, which the U.S. government only 6 years ago labeled as the largest threat of terrorism in the United States of America. I want us to remember that, right? Which has been xenophobic before in its history. These are the same people who left the Jewish people in boats on the water and refused to allow them to come into the country before they shipped them back to England, who then shipped them down to the country that is now having a bunch of unrest, which is Palestine, right? It is America who did that. I don't want to forget that part. It is Americans who have been anti-Muslim, who have continued to spew hatred, even though the 9/11 tapes, many witnesses would say those were Israeli voices. We blamed an entire Muslim population, went to war with them, and said, oops, so sorry. Our bad. We found no weapons of mass destruction. Although we build you this belief that these people are terrorists. When truly, when we get down to the money of it, we see that the countries which we have attacked have been extraordinarily wealthy when it comes to gold, when it comes to
Minerals.
minerals, when it
Mhm.
comes to uranium, when it comes to all other sorts of things that we in this country need. We stripped Gaddafi in that country for oil and gold. We stripped other places for minerals. We continue to go. So when we see this anti hatred of Muslim people, Mandami happens to be Muslim. And oh my goodness, the world is going to fall apart because what if this man actually does something which reverses the track that the United States has been on and begins to, I don't know, unleash a survival lifeboat for this country today? So, what we saw in the mandate that was passed down from the votes was this idea that Americans are saying, not today. Not
Mhm.
today. We put our trust in this man who's gone out to fight for us now. Let's bring back our conversation about food stamps and welfare and combine it with our conversation about Mundami and look at the government choosing to reopen temporarily in this interesting way. What we see is that the people of the United States have had enough with the two-party system.
You must have been reading my post this morning because that's what I said. So I have
And
someone from the Working Families Party coming on at 7 o'clock
there
because we're
we
going to
are.
have a thoughtful, thorough conversation around because Americans at this point are willing to go vote somewhere else. They're willing to buck their own party, whether it's Republican or Democrat. They see the rake. They see it. They see it.
And
They
this is
see
not
that they're
new.
two sides of the same coin, right?
When
But they
Barack
can't believe
Obama
it.
Yeah, when Barack Obama was elected, what was so interesting about that election was that he pulled Republican voters to vote for him. When Joe Biden was elected, in fact, when Trump was elected the first time, we saw how polarizing he pulled the middle of the country, the poor who had
Mhm.
never voted, into
Mhm.
voting for him. When Joe Biden was elected, it was a referendum not for Joe Biden, but against
Yes.
Donald Trump's government. This is really important in politics to understand that if people are not voting for you, but against the other party, that the party that you're existing in has a lot of work to
To
do.
do.
So now we
Say that
sit in a
again,
place
David. If people are
when the
voting, go ahead.
when people are voting against someone else, not necessarily for you, but against someone else, and that's how you got in office, and the party that you represent has a lot of work to do because people should be voting for you. They shouldn't be voting for you in order to get away from
From
something
something else.
hideous.
Yes.
Where is the option of this is good? And so, what Americans were choosing when they chose Mandami, and I'm saying America, but it was New York, but in New York also is this great melting pot. I like that word. It's a great melting pot of so many people who've moved into Manhattan because most New Yorkers will tell you they're not New Yorkers who are there anymore. It's a bunch of people from
Mhm.
around the country who've moved to this center of commerce, this center of law, this center of education, this center of world global city, in touch with what's happening in the world. And
Mhm.
those people said, enough. Enough
Mhm.
with this two-party people who both play the game badly. We have
Mhm.
a Democratic seat which chooses to play checkers. People say all the time they just move one time. Sometimes they're jumping over pieces, not really sure what they're doing, and play Mr. Nice Guy. We have this Republican Party which has been, I say, extraordinarily talented. You have to give it to them. They spend a wonderful amount of time. If they see a problem, they spend years and years and years chiseling away at it, as a friend of mine says, until it becomes a swastika. And so this is this two-party system, which is frustrating to many Americans who say we want a government who works for us. As Charlie Kirk was killed, people realized more acutely how much attention the United States government has paid to Israel.
Mhm.
As people pay attention to Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was one of those big froghorns that got people to move to a conservative place, who's now saying this conservative government that I'm working for is a bunch of shit.
Mhm.
As people are listening to people like Chuck Schumer make decisions that they don't understand and don't understand why he would do things that seem defeatist to who they are. How could you finally cross the line into government starvation? Where were the Democrats who gave up their salaries during this particular lockdown period of no government? I'm going to call it a lockdown because it was a lockdown for those of us who didn't have access to X, Y, and Z, right? So, where are those people when it comes to representing the people of the United States of America? Well, the people of the United States of America have always historically, if we look at the paper trail, let's go back to the receipts, chosen to dump their own tea into the harbor if the government didn't work for them, chosen to
Mhm.
set their own village on fire if they didn't get what they wanted. And so what we see now is a referendum about change. We will either buck the system and elect an entirely new group of people,
Mhm.
or what? And that is the
Mhm.
question that we have to answer.
Yeah, agreed. I also believe, and listen, and I love your history. So you make us think. You make me go back and do the research, and you've never been wrong yet because you really know what you're talking about in terms of what's happening in the country and around the world. Now, here's the part that Democrats, they're all running around saying, "Oh my God, we've won, we've won, we've won," blah blah blah. It was a referendum against the other thing that was going on, and they don't necessarily translate to those votes. Don't necessarily translate to having faith in the Democratic Party. Here's
At
the
all.
part that I think the establishment party people don't get yet. There are going to be folks that run against established party leaders. That's here. They're 20-year-olds winning elections, 30-year-olds winning elections. The young people, I saw a video of one young girl, her mother sent it to me. I'm great friends with the mama. She says, "I don't understand. My daughter posted this on TikTok about who the hell was she voting for. She's being told to vote. She went out and voted, but she didn't know what she was voting for. And she can't understand why nothing is changing, blah, 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 blah." And I wrote back to the mother. I recorded it and I said, "Your daughter is right." I said,
Mhm.
so instead of talking about failing as a parent, we need to start to understand, all of us, how government works and how, even though it seems like it's on the left and it's a Democratic Party, how oftentimes those establishment party leaders are colluding with the other side, and that many of them have to go. So what they're stiff-necked about is that, well, I've been here forever, and this is my turn. When you go look at the receipts, they're really not doing much of anything, and the only time you see them is when it's time for them to run for another office, or and they're showing up everywhere for however long it takes to win an election. So I really believe the referendum is not just against the Democrats, but against the established ones who
I
have been
think
here doing absolutely nothing.
there's a referendum against the establishment. There are several things that I introduce as medicine from a political
Yes.
doctorship, if you will.
Mhm.
The first thing is a flat tax. Right,
Mhm.
Warren Buffett talked about this. Many other
Mhm.
people in other zones have talked about this. If we had a flat tax in America, and that is if I were to dream it, to say that anyone who makes under $70,000 a year pays 0%
Zero.
in taxes in
Mhm.
the United States, anyone under
Mhm.
70,000. Anyone above $70,000 a year pays anywhere between 10 to 15% in taxes total,
Right.
with zero exemptions. Right now, what
Mhm.
that does is that creates what feels like to many people who escape tax loopholes and therefore put their money into dark places that would allow them to continue to not sow into the craziness and madness that we end up with today in these lobbying and interest groups. Right? If we did that, we would have more money in the coffers to run the United States of America than we have now, less work for people to do to catch up on people who didn't pay their taxes and this, that, and the other, and a much more healthy economy as people were able to use the money that they had to continue to live and survive and thrive. So that's
Mhm.
the first thing. We want to skip over the money, but it really is always about the money. Follow the money in America. Whenever you have capitalism as a form of government, it is based upon your coin, and that decides what value you have to the system at work. Right. So if we start there at this understanding of tax, then we can say from that point, let's look at what the law provides so far as the way that we deal with people. The reason why most laws that are anti-people exist are because of ism. Fill it. Racism, sexism, xenophobia, Islamophobia, whatever phobias, isms we have, that is the root cause for most of the laws that do not pass that are humanist. That says that we are sick and have a lot of work to do when it comes to how we see humanity in the world. That it can't be, and the danger becomes when we mix money and humanity together in a capitalist society, and we have this imbalance, suddenly you get people like a billionaire, I won't name one, right, who decides they're going to build a hospital, which is good for people, but the reason they're building the hospital is because it gives them some sort of a tax break and or benefit at
Yes.
the end of the day.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
don't have people who are just building things for the good of people often that
Mhm.
get that don't receive some sort of financial benefit for that. So
Mhm.
so there's that. The second thing we have to do is we have to remove this lobbying interest group idea. When people can pay you as a politician to bend your thought into their
Mhm.
desired will, we have a big problem, and we're always going to end up at hitting an iceberg. Right, that is the quickest way to shake this. You are supposed to be elected to a higher office in order to represent the people who put you there. That is your only job.
Mhm.
Right, there is one person who's at the head of that, whether it's city governance, state governance, national governance, federal, whatever it is. That person at the head is supposed to represent the will of the people. The people just underneath them are supposed to legislate based upon the will of the people, and then we're supposed to have this thing called democracy, this republic, if you will, if we can keep it. But the problem that we have is that we have a problem keeping it because we interfuse it with this lobbying idea in which somebody can pay for your idea, in which you will then have to find some tricky
Mhm.
phrase or
Mhm.
manipulative way to explain to people why you
Why
voted
you did the
against their
right?
best interest. I would love to look at the lobbying groups who begged for the government to be reopened. I'd love
Mhm.
us to do the research and to follow the money trail to see exactly which groups decided that now is the time
Mhm.
that got that vote to 60-40.
Mhm. Mhm. I do believe
What
the lobbying
Americans
it's money. It's money. They're
what
watching how
Americans
much
are
they're trying
asking
to get.
for, what
Go
Americans are
ahead.
asking
Go
who
ahead.
don't have the money is for the government to represent them, for the government to finally represent them. They who has changed greatly since the inception of
Mhm.
America. But even if you talk to an alt right Christian white nationalist person, their fear is that the government doesn't represent them. It's the same fear across the way. It's painted differently. It's spoken differently. The fire is stoked by a different group of people for a different reason, often false, with lots of propaganda and lots of this. No one tells them that they weren't white to begin with. No one tells them this dream was never meant for them. No one tells them that they are systematically made poor on purpose. No one tells them the food stamps were actually there to damn them so that a small fraction of people were not helped. No one says that when we talk about people who are transgendered in this in the United States, that there's such a teeny, teeny, teeny portion of the populace that it becomes such national news that this is all a fire so that you see smoke, so you can't see what's going on behind the smoke. No one says that to people. And so what happens is we have derision and division that has caused such an epic chasm in America that today our job is to come out from the smoke and say, no, no, no. It's time for us now to choose people in government who represent the people. Now, what is dangerous, and this is where I think Donald Trump really did an amazing job. What he did an amazing job, he is nothing like any Republican I'd ever met in my entire life before him. Because he actually was a Democrat for many, many years. And
Absolutely.
he switched parties and he became independent for a second. And then he decided he was going to run Republican. And we have to remember his phrase. He said it on stage. We can all go back to this tape. I'm going to run, if I ever run for president of the United States, I will run as a Republican because those are the people who are dumb enough to vote for me. Quote.
Unquote.
Now, I don't want us to dwell on that because however you take that, the truth is he ran as a Republican and he won. A person like Mandami, who might be independent in spirit, who might be something else in thought, who might have all these other things, can run as a Democrat if he lobbies the group. Because what we discovered with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden is that the person with the biggest purse is who's going to be at the top of the ticket on the party. So if people like Mondami, if people like California's Gavin Newsom, if people continue to fight in this way, in a way that resonates with the people and speaks to their voice, then they will move this sort of third party idea into a system which is built and also have the money. My fear with third party system is always that they get trampled by these two large parties who want to put them out immediately. So while all the good is happening in the third party, this big lobbying interest just gets over the hump by saying we're going to pay to quell it. And we don't have laws that stop that yet. But I do think that the third party can infiltrate the big party and take
I do.
over. And we've
I do.
seen that on the right. Yeah.
Hmm. We do. I know. I know you have a. Is your car there yet?
Almost. It is pulling up. It's so funny the way the UK does this, and I love the way they do it. But they send you a message and then they send their car. So you're not late.
Yes. Yes. So I'm going to let you go, and I reserve the right to bring. Are you coming back to the United States anytime soon?
I will. I will be. I
Okay.
will be
All
back
right. I
in a
reserve
few
the right
days.
to bring you
Yes,
back on later on this week, depending on what's happening. But thank you
I'll be
so much.
there.
And thank you always for being here every Monday, despite what is going on and where you're traveling to.
Listen,
Love you, my darling.
listen. Love you more. Bye now.
Bye bye. All right. So, good morning to all of you. I had to get him in. One of the things that I want you to consider, all of you, is to question everything, unlearn all the things that you have been conditioned into believing. I see a lot of emotional responses. I see a lot of talk about what if we had just voted for Kamala. If you follow the history, then you know it was more than likely that this something could have happened. Something subversive could have happened where she would not win the election. You knew that we never ever had a United States president that's a woman, and the fact that she was a woman of color was going to cause all kinds of issues, and there were going to be people who would do anything necessary. We also see from the polls that people came out and voted for her en masse and that she won the popular vote. So I need you to stop saying that if people had just come out and voted. Look at the data. Don't just come out and emotionally say these things and blah 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 blah. 370,000 people came out and voted in an off election in Philadelphia, unheard of, and yet you were still complaining. I need you to take the wins when they come. I need you to understand that people are being awakened to come out and vote. See the positive things that are happening here now. At 7 o'clock, I'm going to have Councilmember Kendra Brooks on, who's a part of the Working Families Party. She and I are going to talk about what does the Working Party do? What does it stand for? Because I really believe people are just absolutely done. And they can see now that neither the Democrats nor the whether you like it or not, neither the Democrats or Republicans are really truly working on their behalf. And the fact that, ones over there, people voted for Donald Trump, and let's call it what it is. People were voting for Donald Trump, one, because of xenophobia, but really, two, they wanted something different out of government than what they had been seeing. Call it what you will. That is, and I kept saying this to you all in 2016 when I said to my husband, in the primaries, I said Donald Trump's going to win this election. He said, "How do you know?" I said, "Because I'm listening to the people on the ground. I'm talking to everyday people who said that their voice is not being heard either by the Republicans, the regular Republicans, or the Democrats. You all sat there stiff-necked." As officials, I'm just running for office. I want to be able to have my seat. I want to be able to walk into a room and say that I am council member so and so, or I am mayor of this, or I am a governor of this, or I am president of that. And where are the people seeing the differences and the changes in their lives? Stiff-necked. And so now you're being challenged in a way that offends you and upsets you, but you're getting your salaries. At the very least, $185,000 a year. While so many people are not able to pay their health care, not able to pay just the basic things. Last night, my husband said to me, "Babe, our water bill is 180. 180 what? 100. Our water bill went up 4 times what it would normally be, just out of nowhere." Right. And so you got to look as people open up microphones and this is egregious and blah 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 blah. What are you actually doing for the people? Because I'm telling you, folks have absolutely had it. And so no longer, this is why you see what I call dark horses running for office, because you all are sitting there saying, well, they didn't follow this protocol and didn't follow that protocol, and they need to have the blessing of this one and that one. The people are telling you hell to the no, no, no. The people are bunking, going against what normally was the tradition and saying, all right, you think that's what we should do? And they're going into the voting booths and they're voting for what they believe will be best for them. So don't be shocked when you continue to see more of this happening. Right? More of this happening. Let me look at this here. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Oh my God, there's so many messages here. Thank you all so much. Good morning to all of you. I see you. David, was on his way to the airport. He got called by the House of Commons and they sent a driver for him. So he had to move from going to the airport to go back into the House of Commons so to talk to them. And so he's going to do that. Yes. Please click the like button. Please click like and subscribe. We really do appreciate it because we are working hard for you all every day. Alexandra says, sit down and have a conversation with your young people, get an understanding of what concerns them, and listen. This election last week is proof of their power. Absolutely. The mom who I told her daughter was correct sent me a message and she said, I sent your message to my daughter to listen to it. And she was so happy to hear that an adult understood what she was talking about. You can't just go tell your young people to go out and vote. What the hell are they voting for? Right? What are they voting for? It's crazy. Marguerite says, our youth and young adults have always said that government does not represent them, but I watched people our ages in their 40s and the 50s right in front of the White House a couple of years ago telling them you don't have a choice, you got to vote, just shut up, if you're not voting for the Democrats, you're voting for the Republicans. And the young man was like, I just graduated from Howard, I have a bunch of debt, I cannot afford to live on my own, I have this fantastic degree, my job is only paying me $40,000 a year, what the hell am I going to do with that? I still have to live with my parents, I can't afford health care. And that older black man who was about in his 50s kept in his face. And I said, no, listen to him. Listen to him. You all just want what you want as usual, and nothing is changing for our young people. And so now they're now using their votes. They're watching, they're watching the same old establishment politics. They're doing all kinds of crazy things, and not crazy. They're doing all kinds of thoughtful things, because I have two young people, one of them who sits with his group of friends and says, all right, so what's happening? Let's talk. What did you see in the news? Who did the research? And there's a clutch of them in their late 20s that are now showing up and voting, not just for a Democrat or a Republican, but for somebody who believes it's in their best interest. And if someone shows up to run against an established Democrat, they're voting for that person that shows up to run for the established Democrat. Remember that I told you that right here. So don't sit around and say, I don't understand. They don't understand how government works. They understand that many people who are in office is because of the money they get from special interest group. And when they get into those offices, the special interest group comes back to them and says, well, now I want to own that property. And they do what they're asked to do and hope that like hell nobody, the average person, doesn't know what it is that they're doing. That's the craziness. And the young people have figured it out. And so now they're, no, we'll take somebody else. We will absolutely take somebody else. Anything other than what has been going on over here. It's crazy. Diane says, I don't understand. I didn't even truly understand who I was voting for, which is what I said to that mom. Good morning, Roz. How are you? Tiffany says, my water has doubled with the same usage. So as ours has tripled with the same usage. And so you know what that is, right? It's the data centers. It's a lot going on out here. Sandra says, yes, just happened yesterday. I was listening to talk radio yesterday, and two people were discussing Dr. Stanford's entry into the race, and many politicians are upset because she didn't come correct. What? This is what Shirley Chisholm went through back in the 70s. We have to do better than the way it used to be. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Alexandra says, ladies and gentlemen, you were the youth that would have voted against your parents' political views in the late 60s and 70s. Remember your concerns and how you wanted to be heard. Um, Marguerite says, my son told me his vote was personal to him and based on his research, not the popular opinion. And that's what the average young person is saying. So, sit around and mule if you want to, but it is what it is right now. And these young people are tired. And guess what? They're becoming the largest voting bloc because the elderly who would normally vote are like, they're dying off, right? You can't live forever. So here we go. Good morning. Welcome to Mornings with Morva. How may I help you?
Good morning, Miss Oh, Kendra Brooks.
Good morning, my sister. Thank you so much for joining me at short notice. I just had David Alexander Jenkins on talking about the elections, the government reopening, and all the things that come along with it from the history that we've experienced. Now, I asked you at real short notice to talk to us about the Working Families Party. Who are they? Why are they so important to so many people now as a third option in this country?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I hear them, but don't pay them no mind. They're fine. They're fine.
Yeah, I'm on grandma duty, so yes.
Yes.
So Working Families Party. Excuse my voice. I went to the Covana incinerator on Friday, and my voice has not been back all right since. So just work with me. That's a whole nother story.
Okay. Which we would like to hear, because why were you at an incinerator?
We just went to visit it because we take our trash there to that incinerator, and it's polluting the air in that community.
Which community is it in, Councilmember?
Chester.
Oh.
Chester.
And you came back with no voice. So imagine the people that live in that community.
I know. And it's been off and on all weekend. This was
Friday. Okay. All right.
So that's a whole nother
I hope your voice comes back and you're okay.
It comes back and forth. It's fine. I have allergies, so I didn't expect that to happen. No.
Okay.
So who is Working Families Party? So we're the party is out of New York. It is a coalition of groups, including service sector unions, community-based organizations, and organizers coming together to fight for the rights of working class people. We have a Pennsylvania chapter now. It's a national organization. We currently have a Pennsylvania chapter that's been active around since 2016. And we elect and endorse Democrats, except both myself and Nicholas O'Rourke are two standalone Working Families Party candidates, elected officials.
Oh, say more about that so we can understand.
So in 2019, we ran for 2 seats in city council. The way the charter is set up, there are 17 city council seats, 2 of which are reserved for a minority party. And traditionally, those seats have been given to Republicans, just as the default, because that was the minority party. So we ran in 2019, both myself and Nicholas O'Rourke, and I won one of the seats that was reserved for a minority party back in 2019. I took office in 2020. Continued to build the party. We ran again for the other open seat that was David O. He resigned to run for mayor. We ran Nicholas again, and he won his seat in 2024. That makes it 2 Working Families Party city council people in Philadelphia City Council. So we're not Democrats and we're not Republican. Our political party is the Working Families Party.
Okay. Can a Working Families Party candidate run against a Democrat or a Republican?
Not in council. Just the way it's set up. You can't run in council because those two, well, it gets kind of tricky.
Okay. Say more about that. So say more about that so people can understand it.
We ran against the Republican Party to get those 2 seats that we had.
Okay.
As a minority party. The way the charter for city council is set up, good morning. There's no reason why we couldn't run a Working Families Party candidate in other races, but that's not our function currently.
Okay.
We endorse Democrats in other races, whether it's state rep races, congressional races. We just endorse candidates, not just in Philadelphia, but across the Commonwealth as part of Working Families Pennsylvania.
Okay. And you work with the Democrats because why?
I wouldn't say we work necessarily with the Democrats. We support candidates that have our same vision and desire for what we want to see to the cities.
Right.
Yes, we work with them, but we are our own independent party.
Okay.
That endorse candidates, train and recruit candidates, and also teach political education and community.
Okay. Understood that part. Now, you're not a party big enough to have primaries like the Democrats and the Republicans, correct?
The way it's set up, we only can run in the general
elections. Will that change at any point in history? Are you aware?
Currently, that's not our current plan. However, there's conversations about different iterations on how we can perform in the political arena, but right now that's not our plan. We endorse Democrats.
Okay. As you may have been paying attention to, people are frustrated, right, on either side of the aisle, the Democrats and the Republicans. The Working Families Party came out of New York City. We've seen what happened with Mandami. Even though he is a registered Democrat, he really is a centrist, someone who a lot of people were very afraid. Even the Democratic Party themselves, they refused to endorse him to the very last second. There was so much work pushed against him for him not to win his election, and he won anyway. What do you see happening with the Working Families Party around the country? Where are they? Just in New York and Pennsylvania? Where do they have chapters?
We are in New York, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Colorado. There's a couple regional chapters, whether it's Washington State, California. Oh, goodness. I should have had the list in front of me.
No worries. I called on you last second.
Across the country.
Okay.
Each chapter looks a little bit different. That's why it's easier for me to say just we endorse Democrats. And to Mandani, he was Working Families Party endorsed as well.
Okay. Now, can you sense the frustration of the average American citizen about the two-party system? And what is the Working Families Party saying about that, if anything at all?
Well, the frustration is real. Like, keep in mind that, traditionally we elect candidates on an agenda, and we hopeful that this agenda is people-focused and people-centered. But what we see elected officials more beholden to corporate interests and big money, and leave the people behind. That's where the frustration lies, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. If you think about somebody voted for this man that's okay with cutting health care and food stamps.
Right.
He didn't just get there by accident.
Right.
A lot of people, and not just Republicans, voted for him.
Right. Absolutely.
So
Let's talk about that because I have said
so
this time
that's
and
the
again,
reality.
there were
And
plenty
I
of
think we also
Democrats who
have to
crossed.
realize that no one party is a monolith.
Absolutely. There are plenty of Democrats that crossed that line in the general election and voted for the current president that we have. And we keep saying, well, it's the Republicans, it's the Republicans. We need to look at people and their thoughts and their values around what's going on. And there are many, many folks who believe poor shouldn't exist. The poor people shouldn't exist. That, they'd rather get rid of us. They don't even want to serve us in schools, in their offices, etc., etc. What do you, and this is just me asking you, what do you believe the solution would be? Do you agree or disagree that we need a third party system in this country to kind of break up some of this monotony that we've been dealing with as a people?
I believe that people need options. And I think the way the current system has been designed, people didn't have an option. And the only way I can bring it back to reality is like when I ran for office, people said that what I was doing was ridiculous. It was a bunch of naysayers and weird rumors that we were disrupting the Democratic Party. We did not disrupt the Democratic establishment. We brought a different vision and focus for people to believe in. We were able to mobilize folks who were disengaged in elections, had already stopped voting for people because they felt that the two-party system wasn't working for them. That's what we were able to do here. So with us endorsing Working Families Party Democrats, we're able to continue to build this movement that our country deserves so much more. And we need to make sure that people have options.
Right.
Because to your point, all Dems aren't necessary Dems.
Oh, child.
We see some that perform and behave very much like Republicans. So the Democratic Party didn't have an option, but Working Families Party offers an alternative. By us endorsing Democrats, most of the times in primaries, we're usually not endorsing the same people that the Democratic Party is endorsing.
Okay. Do you endorse independents who run for office too?
We can endorse independents. It looks very different based on various city charters, based on the rules for various regions, whether it's even across Pennsylvania, it varies.
Okay. I'm grateful for this understanding because one of the things I realized was that we really didn't know too much about the Working Families Party. And every time I would talk to a Democrat, they said, well, here's the biggest one, Kendra. They're just the Working Families Party is just a bunch of progressive white people who are using the black people to get their agenda passed, blah, 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 blah. Have you heard that one?
Yes, I did. But just to be clear, I am not white.
Yes, ma'am.
I am a leader in the party.
Amen.
And I stand up for what I believe for my neighbors and my community. So that narrative, I really get very frustrated with that because that's a way, it's a cop-out to dismiss the work that I am doing as an elected official to make it seem like I'm the face of white people.
So I'm glad we talked about that part of it. Didn't even know that you had heard it because I'd heard it, quietly from folks. Now, when you are part of the Working Families Party, how do you navigate within a system and a government that does not want you there? How do you deal with the folks that you are supposed to be working with as colleagues who do not want you there?
Well, I'm an organizer first, and I use those same skills in organizing to get things done. We don't have to agree on everything, but if I can get you to agree on this particular piece of legislation that's impacting the people in my community, we'll be able to move this agenda forward. That's how we were able to get the Power Act legislation passed. We were able to get paid sick leave legislation passed. I'm okay with standing alone. I don't have a problem with being the only one. The goal is to continue to build momentum around issues that impact the people in Philadelphia. So I get things done. And listen, I'm the same person all the time. Authenticity goes a long way. I say what I say. I do what I say and I'm doing. And my no is enough. So people respect that. I didn't come here to be liked, but you have no choice but to respect me. I get things done. And I work across the board, whether it was with a Republican, a Democrat, the Chamber of Commerce, grassroots organizations. I make it my business when passing legislation to speak to everyone that will be impacted.
Amen.
Because too often people in my community don't get a voice at all. They don't have to hire fancy lawyers. They don't have the 6-figure incomes to come to City Hall to meet with us. It's my it's part of the due diligence to make sure not only am I capturing their voices, but I also listen to the folks that are always around, always offering food and drinks, right? Just to get their perspective. But my most important thing is to stand ground for the people who elected me in the office.
So if someone decides that they want to run through the Working Families Party, what do they need to do?
If someone decides they want to run
for office,
the Working Families, what they need to do? Well, you can definitely, we have, they can reach out to Working Families Pennsylvania. We have endorsement questionnaires that are available on our website. And we have a series of meetings and meetups that you can connect to it. Right now, we have this election captain program where we're training up folks in communities to organize their blocks.
Okay.
So that's surface level. We actually have a training coming up in January. If you go to our Working Families Party website, you should see our upcoming training in January for folks that are interested in running for office.
What's that website?
I think it's PAWorkingFamiliesParty.org.
Okay, workingfamiliesparty.org. Okay. Because these are I want to give people options. I want people to think through so that they can decide whether they want to run or not. Now, I've noticed in the last few elections, particularly in Pennsylvania, there are folks running on the Democratic ticket that are not endorsed by Democrats. And a couple of folks said, I'm going to use Dr. A.La Stanford as an example. They're saying that on talk radio, someone said Dr. A.La Stanford should stay in her own lane. And that just happened yesterday. I was listening to talk radio and two people were discussing Dr. Stanford's entry into this race, and many politicians are upset because she didn't come correct. What the hell is not come correct? Ms. Brooks, do you know what that means?
I don't know. They said the same thing about me. I think that anyone has the opportunity to run, they should. I think we should give the voters as many options as possible. And I don't know what stay in your lane means. They told me the same thing.
Okay. So from what I've come to understand, there's a couple of conversations you need to have with Democratic or Republican leaders. They then decide who they want to endorse, and that everybody in the party should get behind that endorsed candidate. What the parties are seeing now, Democrat and Republican, is that folks are not getting behind the endorsed candidates. The endorsed candidates are not a necessary shoe-in. And so there needs to be conversations around whether, and Mandani was not endorsed by the Democratic Party the entire summer. They pulled out every stop. And instead of, what I find very interesting, Councilmember Brooks, is that instead of either party saying there's a reason why people are looking towards someone other than us, should we do an established candidate, or should we interview everybody and then say, let the people choose, and whoever wins in the primaries, that's the candidate we endorse? You see what I'm saying? I don't get that we are still sitting here talking about endorsing people. It really is fair across the board when we say, this is who, go to the primaries, every man and woman and child for himself. You go to the primaries, whoever wins in the primaries through your hard-earned work, that's the person we will stand behind. Dr. Ayanna Pressley did it too in Boston, Massachusetts. The Democratic Party would not endorse her. I learned that Senator Art Haywood, the Democratic, did not endorse him. And look, he came into office, and that man has been fighting for the people ever since he walked in. Now, perfection, no candidate is perfect. No politician is perfect, but you can see a track record of certain people of what they're doing. And so whether he's running for office or not, he's out there trying to get things for the folks. And so I really want the two-party system to understand people are no longer voting for endorsed candidates. You could endorse them till the Jesus come back and say, not today, my child. Right? People are looking. In fact, Councilmember Brooks, the conversation I am hearing in people's living rooms and in conversations that I'm having with them around the city in particular is that we're not just voting for endorsed candidates anymore. We want to hear from everybody. We want to look at people's records. People have awakened and are now paying attention. No more can you say, this is who you tell people to vote for. Because as you can see, they go in the thing and they do what they believe is right. And the folks who voted Democratic across the board, it's not because they really love the Democratic Party so much, because they're frustrated with the Democrats too, right? It's just that anything was better than this thing that they have going on where they can't buy food, et cetera, et cetera. How are the Democrats now going to take this mandate that has been laid upon them and do something completely different from what they've always done beyond just expecting the votes and being in power? Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I did. One of the things I want to add, Art Hayward and Ayanna Presley are both Working Families Party endorsed candidates, just to be clear.
Ah, got it. Okay, did not know that.
I had to put a peg in there. Like, when those are the folks that we endorse, folks that are, maybe not. Earlier I mentioned that we don't necessarily endorse with the Democratic Party in the primary. Mm-hmm. And there were two examples of that. Mm-hmm. And I think, I try to limit my talking about the Democratic Party because I'm building something very different. Mm-hmm. But I do think it's time for, folks to look at what's happening, not just in our city, but around the country.
Yes.
And listen to the voices of the folks that are registered Democrats and figure out a new system that works. Mm-hmm. And I think that, for Working Families Party, when our endorsement process, we have tiers of endorsement. We have endorsements where our membership, like folks who are WFP aligned, come together, interview a candidate, ask questions, and those votes are weighted in. And then we have a state committee that's made up of the community-based organizations as well as some unions that also interview candidates. A long questionnaire. Most people said our questionnaire is very long, but it's based on the issues that we're most excited about. And then we weigh those two together to come up with who's the WFP endorsed candidate. So we interview anyone that applies.
Okay.
On time.
Okay.
It's not like a favor base or Kendra said, that's not how that works.
Okay.
So that's our system. I don't know what the Democratic Party system is, but it's not like we sit in the table and just be like, oh, this is the person.
Councilmember Kendra Brooks, I can't thank you enough. I know you have your grands. You gave me 20 solid minutes, and I appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to add before we say goodbye, Madame?
No. I guess we have more elections to come, more conversations to have. I think that folks should reach out and look into Working Families Party. Don't believe what they say. Get to understand it for yourself. Follow my track record, Nicholas' track record, and a couple of others that I mentioned that are WFP endorsed, and realize that we're out here working for the people. To me, this is not a publicity stunt. I could be doing something else. Right now, I'm in this for a purpose, and it's to make sure we change the lives of people here in Philadelphia.
Madam, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I reserve the right to call back upon you at any time.
All righty. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. It wasn't just Louisiana. Alexandra says, look at those around the country like Gary Chambers in Louisiana. It's all across. It's Mississippi. A gentleman. Let me do this. Because the parties have been. Someone wrote, Mandani has posed with Iman Siraj Wahaj, identified as an unindicted co-conspirator, but he was okay. So I am not sure, because nowhere is it saying that he's an unindicted co-conspirator. He is an African-American imam of Atwaqua Mosque in Brooklyn, New York, and the leader of the Muslim Alliance in North America, MANA. He is also the former vice president of the Islamic Society of North America. Is it that he's a Muslim? Because if you've been listening, whoever this person is that posted this, if you had been listening, there has been lots and lots of conversation and research around the voices that were in the cockpit were not Muslim. They were not Muslim, and they went to war with Iraq, tore Iraq up, and said there were no weapons of mass destruction found there, but they were able to pull the oil, all the other things. I want us to really ask the questions, really, truly get into why it is that we're doing what we're doing, and what is it that we believe. Do your own research. Please, please, please. I'm going to play something for you if I can find it, because it's one of the things. This man. All right, here we go. Virginia, it's a white man in New Jersey. Hold on.
The headlines went to Virginia, New York, and New Jersey. But the real story, the quiet ground shifting, what happened in Mississippi. Most outside the South might not have noticed it yet. They'll call it a small race, a regional shakeup. But those of us, the headlines went to Virginia, New York, and New Jersey. But the real story, the quiet ground shifting, what happened in Mississippi. Most outside the South might not have noticed it yet. They'll call it a small race, a regional shakeup. But those of us who know this ground, who've watched the light fading over towns long written off as lost causes, felt the earth move. Because this time, Mississippi didn't wait for permission. The people will talk about how a supermajority broke, but they will be missing the real miracle here. It didn't break because of some tidal wave of new voters. It broke because the people already there have finally had enough. They organized their communities. They showed up for each other. They built their own momentum without the cavalry. No national spotlight, no deep-pocketed campaign machinery. Just Mississippians, tired, proud, and determined, who decided that hopeless was a word spoken by people who don't live there. You could feel it in the air, like the sound of a front door slamming or the weight of rain on dust just before dawn. The quiet resolve in the faces of people who've spent their whole lives being told they don't matter, that they'll never change anything. But this time they did. That's a lesson the DNC needs to learn fast. The support is already here. The votes are already here. What's missing isn't belief, it's investment. For decades, the party has written off the South as too red, too far gone, too stubborn to save. But you can't win a fight you never show up for. Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, Alabama, all of these are not barren political wastelands. They're full of people who believe in fairness, who believe in decency, who've been waiting for someone to stop mocking our accents long enough to hear what we're saying. 30-some-odd% of Arkansas voters are registered independents. That means they're waiting to be asked, to be inspired. And that's the truth of it. We need candidates we can believe in, candidates who sound like us, who come from the fields and the storefronts, not just from donor lists with polished talking points. We don't need uncontested elections where the same tired voices drone on unchallenged. We need leaders who make people feel something again. Leaders who remind the working class that politics can still be about dignity, not just dollar signs. Because for too long, the South hasn't lacked support, it's lacked faith. Faith from the institutions that claim to represent the people. Faith from the national strategists who write off whole states as lost. It's not the people who've given up, it's the party. Drive down 49 at sunset and you'll see it. Old barns with their roofs half collapsed, ghosts of campaign signs rusting along the fence, and cotton fields stretching out like a threadbare quilt. But if you look closely, you'll see life still stirring there. Porch lights still burning, families still gathering, teachers still buying supplies from their own pockets, preachers opening food pantries, and in every one of those small acts, there's something waiting to ignite. And Tuesday proved that. It was a crack in the armor of inevitability, a reminder that the soil still grows something stubborn and beautiful here. When the people of Mississippi rose up, they didn't just elect a few new faces, they resurrected a truth this country keeps forgetting. The South is not lost. It's just been a little wayward. If the Democratic Party has the wisdom to listen, let them listen now. A progressive swell already rolls through the Delta and the hills and the river towns. It's been here the whole time, just waiting for someone to believe it's worth fighting for. We don't need saviors parachuting in every election cycle with canned slogans and shallow smiles. We need a strategy that lasts. We need organizers and educators and candidates who understand that change in the South doesn't just happen. It's worked for. A Southern woman with a cause and a damn reason is a force you should never underestimate. And the men and women of these fields and factories and back roads have been told their voices don't matter for the better part of a century. Tuesday, they stopped believing that lie. So let this be the message for Mississippi and the rest of the South. We're still here. We're working, we're organizing, we're ready. And if the rest of the country is too blind or too proud to see it, I guess we'll do it ourselves. Because hope isn't a northern export. It is not exclusive to states above the Mason-Dixon. It grows in the dirt down here, in the sweat and the struggle and the stubborn grace of a people who have never stopped trying to make this place better. And with that fire and determination, Tuesday, the Democrats in the great state of Mississippi blessed some hearts. Defiance till death.
This was written by, spoken by Robert Arnold, who is in Mississippi and speaking truth to power as he sees it from the people in the Delta. Right around the country, you're seeing all these changes now. I never ever profess to have all the answers for all of you. In fact, I am learning right alongside you. And as we dig and we ask questions and we ask questions and we ask questions. Don't just dig deeply enough, at the surface to hear one thing that sounds good to our ears and then we move along with it. I have been questioning and continue to question. I have been said, it has been said to me that I should not speak to Republicans. I should not interview Republicans. I should not interview Democrats. And I say we have to trust that the people of this country need to know every bit of everything so that they can make an informed decision. Because there are plenty of times that Democrats have voted for Republicans and Republicans have voted for Democrats, and all the way around. We need to ask the questions, right? We need to really find out who earns what. Who stands to gain when we fight each other? Who stands to gain when we are pointing fingers at one another, saying that this and that and everything else is going on around us? Who absolutely stands to gain from all of this? That is all I'm asking you. When I come on the air, it's for you to do your own research. I can give you a prompt, right? Tell you somewhere to go look, but it's for you to go and do your own research, and don't just stop at the one thing you see that makes sense to you. Dig and ask the question, who stands to gain for us fighting each other and pointing fingers and tearing each other down with all the isms that surround us? Who? And when you find that, then you'll understand why we are here where we are. This episode of Mornings with Mother is officially over. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to have someone on who works with elections, who have been successful with elections, who's going to tell us how this election process works. Because again, we're not just going to talk about, oh, this one's bad and this one's bad. I am literally digging beneath the surface so that you can understand what is at play. Every single time you go into a voting booth and press because somebody tells you to press a button, what is at play? Who are the people that are chosen to send off to cause a ruckus around you and frustrate you? And I'm going to ask as much as possible that we use our emotional intelligence, right? We use our critical thinking skills and stop saying things like, I don't like him or her because I remember when he or she did such and such to me. It's not about you singular. It's about us, the collective. And once we get that, we'll be all right. I am Mother. I'll see you when I see you. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.